Transparency creates trust, and that is our focus on Business at its Best this evening. Transparency also gives people information to make choices. An important place for that empowerment of knowledge is right in the workplace. Andy Fujimoto with AmeriBen joins us. Andy, thanks so much for being with us today. And let's start off with, what is AmeriBen? What do you do?
AmeriBen, Dale, there's about 300 staff members, and we process medical insurance claims, do retirement administration, and human resource consulting.
So we're going to spend some time with you on the HR side of things and talk about this idea of transparency inside the workplace and how to carry that out. And in the conversation leading up to, you talk about entitlement being something important that you can get around with transparency. What do you mean by that?
Dale, I hear from a number of employers who are concerned about, especially the younger workforce. They seem to be entitled to everything rather than having to earn it. So as we think about that, where does that concept of entitlement come from? I find it interesting that Phil Knight of Nike fame, in fact, addressed in the values of his organization the concept of entitlement and how that can have such a detrimental effect on business.
So what are some of those causes of entitlement that you see?
Yes. Of course, employees are able to make decisions. When we have a lack of transparency, there is distrust. And in fact then, because there's less information to make a decision on, they then make poor decisions. Tom Peters in Search for Excellence, the old standard work going back into the late 1980s, in one of his chapters said he found it interesting that the same employees who make decisions about the house they're going to buy, the car they're going to buy, who they're going to marry, how to raise their kids, for whatever reason, we believe when they walk through the threshold of the company door that they've lost all their brains and they can't think. When they have the proper information, Dale, they're empowered to make good choices.
And they can carry on that decision making inside the business just as well as they do in their personal lives outside the business. That's why you've hired them.
And in fact, I think it goes back to transparency and trust. When you extend transparency, then they're going to trust you. And with that, then they will make decisions for the greater whole. If they don't have that, then they'll make a selfish decision, which isn't always the best one. Why
don't you think companies are as transparent as they could be with employees?
Dale, I think it's counterintuitive. Because one would think that if I'm transparent, and I'll give an example, a reduction in force. Within our own company, we experienced this. We knew 6 months beforehand that a line of our business was going away because the customer was going to move that business somewhere else. We around the management table had a discussion about whether we should be transparent and tell our staff that particular information. Most companies, I think, would think of it to say, well, gee, if we tell them, they're immediately going to leave. Well, we told them that this was going to happen. We couldn't guarantee them a job, but we would do everything we could to find them another place within the organization. Dale, they made good choices, and in fact, not one of those staff members did we lose. And trust, in fact, was fostered with that, and I believe that we have a stronger workforce because of it.
And that was really counterintuitive to everything that went through your mind. So let's talk about then other ways that transparency addresses this feeling of entitlement.
Through the opportunity to know they will make decisions similar to management making decisions. And if they have that same information, they're going to make a very similar decision, I believe, to that of what management would do.
When they have the good information to make the right decision.
Exactly.
Andy Fujimoto, the company is AmeriBen. Thank you so much for being with us today. Great information for us. And coming up next on Business at its Best, we visit a dentist in Shelley for a look at the importance of transparency in the medical community. You are watching Business at its Best, presented by Ataraxis.